Yesterday I took a day of rest. I needed it badly. I went to a small gathering the other night and had, I believe, at least 7 beers. To be honest, I think by the end of the evening I was a rather obnoxious guest, giving much unsought advice. I described what I see as the hierarchy of science, with physics at the foundation, chemistry built upon it, and sociology built far above that, and religion built well above that. Others wanted to place religion well below everything else. I tried to explain that not my religion, your religion, is far above everything else. And when I say that, I don't mean any specific person's religion, but precisely what every person believes is the most important thing to do. Also at the party, I talked about what is masculine and feminine. I said that in society it is masculine to desire, and it is feminine to be desired. If a man waits for women to desire him, unless he's a very rare specimen, he will have a very long wait indeed. I am ordinarily very quiet in conversation, but I think I may have been a loudmouth the night before last. The things that I said could easily be seen as foolishness or wisdom, depending on how it is interpreted, or whether my opinion is correct at all. When I got home, I laid down and was still giddy with the illusory feelings of power and wisdom that alcohol sometimes gives you. My girlfriend, bless her heart, wasn't angry with me, but with the people that had let me have so much alcohol. In any case, after a few glasses of water, I was vomiting. And then I slept for several hours, and when I woke, I said to myself, I shall not do any work today. As far as I was concerned, this was the Sabbath. And is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat. I was like, okay, good. I don't want to carry my mat anywhere anyway. So, let's continue. Let's continue today with why I don't like John's Gospel, chapter 5. So, beginning in chapter 5, sometime later, Jesus went to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. So, let's get some context. Looks like this is the place. The sheep gate is right there, and here is Bethesda. It was called the sheep gate because it led out to the sheep markets, where lambs were sold for sacrifice in the temple, and in the sheep pool, where sheep were washed for sacrificing. So here's a picture of Bethesda from biblicalwellness.blogspot.com. Looks like there ought to be a few people washing sheep in here, or maybe not, since it is Sunday. You're not supposed to be washing your sheep. So here a great number of people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. So let's say one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. And so we can probably say this guy is not bringing in a sheep to sacrifice. So Jesus asks him, do you want to get well? And I think that's important how this guy answers that question. How does the man answer? Does he say yes? No, not exactly. The man says, Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. So no, the man does not ask to be healed. He does not have faith that he can be healed. He asks for someone to help him. Does Jesus give the man here what he asks for? No. Does Jesus give the man what he needs? From what he says, this man wants to be loved. He wants someone to care for him. He wants the respect of others. What does Jesus give the man? Well, he tells the man to do something that will give him in trouble. He tells the man to do something that is explicitly forbidden by the rules at Bethesda, and then slips away into the crowd. I have to say, if I were having trouble, if I were invalid and I asked for help getting into a pool when the water was stirred, and they told me pick up your mat and walk, and I did, I would be kind of surprised to find that they just slipped away into the crowd. But maybe, even though they had slipped away, by the time I'm up already, I might go ahead and try to make my way to the pool. But realizing, oh, this is the Sabbath. So the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat." But but there was a guy, he told me, "Pick up your mat and walk." And they asked him, "Who was this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk?" And he had no idea who it was. He had no idea who it was. Do you know what that means according to John's Gospel? John's Gospel says if you don't believe in the name of God's only begotten Son, you are condemned. So luckily, in verse 14, later Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning or something worse." So Jesus found him at the temple. Now the man knows Jesus' name. Phew. Now I am probably being a bit unfair here. But I want to know if this strikes you as the same nature of the miracles in the other Gospels. In Matthew 9, when Jesus saw their faith, he said to their man, "Take heart, your sins are forgiven." In Matthew 9:22, he says, "Your faith has healed you." Matthew 9:29, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." In Matthew 15, he says, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And this one, kind of the key verse here in Matthew 21, is the key verse to what I'm doing with John's Gospel. "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to this fig tree." And by the way, what was done to that fig tree? Seeing a fig tree near by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing except leaves. And he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." And immediately. And this is what I see in John's Gospel. There is no fruit there, just leaves. What is the fruit here in John 5:1-15? I see none. I see Jesus getting somebody in trouble. Jesus, whose whole purpose in doing miracles in John's Gospel is to prove his divinity. So when this man doesn't even know his name, he blames the man. He then accuses the man of sinning and instructs that man to go out and tell the Jewish leaders who he is. What is this man's sin? Is there any indication of what he needs to stop doing wrong or to start doing right? No. I cannot find any clear lesson from this verse to apply to my own life. And I cannot find any fruit on this tree. So what is Jesus telling them at this point? Because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jewish leaders began to persecute him. In his defense, Jesus said to them, "My Father is always at work. To this day, I too am working." In context, what is Jesus saying to these Jewish leaders at Bethesda? Is he saying that they should also be working on Sunday, bringing in sheep to wash for the slaughter? Who has been working to this very day? But surely there is some fruit here in these verses. The hospital should remain open on Sundays. In Matthew 12, Jesus has his disciples beginning to pick some heads of grain and eat them. The Pharisees say, "Look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath." And Jesus said, "Haven't you read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God, and he and his companions ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for them to do, but only for the priests. Haven't you read in the law that the priests on the Sabbath day in the temple desecrate the Sabbath, yet are innocent? I tell you that something greater than the temple is here. If you had known what these words mean, 'I desire mercy, not sacrifice,' you would not have condemned the innocent. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. So I think that the gist of John 5:1-18 is that Jesus is equal to God. He's calling God his own Father, making himself equal to God, and he gets to heal on Sundays if he wants to. On the other hand, the gist of Matthew 12:1-14 is that it is lawful for all people to do good on Sunday. Okay, so I think there's an important question of context here. What reason did Jesus have for telling people to ignore the Sabbath at Bethesda, where the forgiving of sins was done by sacrificing sheep? In Matthew 12, Jesus specifically asks, "If any of you has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not take hold of it and lift it out?" If a sheep fell into the water at Bethesda on the Sabbath, they would have, because the sheep in the water at Bethesda were being ceremonially washed for sacrifice, but not on the Sabbath. Why are the Pharisees upset with Jesus in Matthew 12:14? Because Jesus is criticizing what they do at the synagogue and the fact that they only save sheep on Sundays, but let them fall into the pit every other day, or at least on whatever day the Sabbath happened to be back then. Now this verse particularly troubles me because we know very well that on the seventh day God rested, according to the Jewish the Torah. But this says, "My Father is always at work to this very day, and I too am working." And so this suggests to me that his father did not take the Sabbath. And who has not taken the Sabbath? Well, John says he was calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. So Jesus gave them this answer, and that begs, what was the question? I don't know. He said, "Very truly, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can do only what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does." My question would have been, who is your Father? For the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does. Yes, and he will show him even greater works than these, so you will be amazed. For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. And I have to kind of say, where, when, what? Where is God raising people from the dead? Or is he talking about Jonah? Is he talking about Jonah? Jonah spent 3 nights